through what I believe the role of a safety management system is and help you define what that actually means. That's one of the terms that people you hear thrown around a lot, but I don't think people really fully appreciate what it means. So what you're seeing is a map here. That's just general. You probably seen similar to these, but every company is on this continuum. So nothing happens unless your executive management believes. And so a lot of the folks that we help are kind of back in the further end of this roadmap where they're just trying to get their management on board. They're just beginning to do a baseline and assess where they are. They're just creating the paperwork or the actual policies and programs that will help them to move forward. But where all of that goes is to get your administration of your program solved and legitimacy gained. And I'm going to talk a lot about that. But until you get to that point, you cannot begin to implement a safety management system. You have a safety program. So you really need to have a safety management system, leadership alignment and engagement. You need a clear roadmap. And you need employee commitment. You've really got to have a personal connection and a belief system in your company that basically everyone believes that they're working together. And so until you round the corner from having administration solved and continuous and legitimacy gained, you can't implement a system. You've got a program, and that's nothing to be sorry about. There's most companies don't have that, but the biggest, safest brands you see, they have a safety or compliance system that really does move past this point. Now, this is not to scale because, of course, this journey is there's no destination. The goalposts continually move. So what I want to do is talk about how to get to that point. And if your company is already down the road, then maybe I'll give you a tip or two on how to stay there or maybe raise the profile of it, of your program. But when you think about what a system is, it's these independent things that work together to move something forward. So it's not a process. It's not a program. It's not a policy. Lotto is a process. Training is a process. But together, they can work together in a system. But the word system and what it is, it's elusive. It's a system is forever getting jammed up. It's not something you build and is fixed and you move forward. It is a running machine that needs maintenance and attention. So one of the things I coach people on all the time is, where are you going? How do you even know where to start if you don't know where you're going? So in my mind, the simplest way to define where you're going is to identify what the goal is. The holy grail of a safety management system is seamless operational integration. That are safety requirements seen as an add-on for operators? If so, then they can do it. Then you can do it better. If it is something that the way they do their job is the safest, most effective way, that's what it is. That is a safety management system in practice. So if operationally they're not doing it because safety says we have to, they're doing it because that is simply the best way to do it. That is kind of the goal. So we're going to start with this destination, and then go from there, moving forward on how to get there. So let me highlight one more time at a high level. I believe an effective safety management system is designed to make things easier for operations. The way they do it is the compliant way and the safest way. And at its core, everyone knows what to do and when to do it, so that the output of that is that the workplace is safer. So I'm going to talk for a little bit about kind of some high level, kind of what I call the golden rules. Now, this little template, this format that you see, this momentum boost, it's part of a broader tool set that we offer. I'm going to put up a QR code at the end of this and show you if you're interested. Your company may be so far down the road you're not interested, but there's some just general guidance that we give. But generally, you can't get to a system if if these things aren't true. If you do not have an EHS department that supports safety, but in the management's mind actually owns safety, you've got a real re-education issue on your hands. You've got to really, that's a challenge, because local leadership, the front line, owns safety. They're the ones that are wearing the PPE. They're the ones that are deciding to climb the ladder without a harness. I mean, I can't tell you how many companies I've seen and coached that the safety department owns safety, and that's a red flag. Got to have good management reporting. You absolutely have to have a piece of software. You need to put your team on an action cadence so that they understand what your expectations are as a safety professional. And then again, this key thing that I'm going to keep coming back to: safety and operations are integrated. They are one thing. So in addition to these golden rules, well, first, a safety management system should give you a rallying point, right? It's a common tool and a baseline understanding. A common goal should be to create positive messaging and drive human connection with employees. But without a safety management system, you really can't do some of the things that you need to do. So a principle that you have to believe in order to create a safety management system is your safety program needs to drive what I call the big three: productivity, profitability, and morale. Those are things that safety is oftentimes not associated with. But as a safety professional, this is the mindset that I believe that I've seen in all my years, and I've been fortunate to see all size companies and effective levels of safety management systems. These are some of the things that where the most effective safety professionals focus on the big three. You can keep it simple. You can organize fast. You set a baseline, and you're never not fixing it. So when you make doing it right the only way that things get done, and you have simple instructions that people understand, you begin to build this foundation of a safety management system, a centralized structure that is focused on supporting operations and leveraging data and best practices. So where does all this start? What is this key cog? What is the straw that stirs the drink, the essential element? And as a software salesman, I hate to say it, but it starts with a piece of paper, with a commitment on a piece of paper from management. And look, there's other folks that have done it a number of other ways, and I'm not here to tell you this is the only way, but this is certainly an effective way. And it starts with this guiding document that gives you the proper authority. So I'm not sure how many folks have a safety program that looks like this. I've seen this is it. This can maybe your only program, but these are policies, these are procedures, and they are disconnected. So when you have disconnected policies, you do not have a system. That doesn't mean you can't get one, and that doesn't mean these practices are only for huge companies. What it means is you've got a baseline of necessary documentation that you need, but what you need is a schematic. You need a way to provide clear and concise instructions that creates this umbrella effect over your policy. So, I mean, over your whole system, your program to system evolution. And so let me kind of put that in visual terms for you. So if you have this document, this overguiding policy that includes these black boxes, and look, maybe you've got different black boxes, and I certainly didn't count all of them, but you can set some things in stone that your president or CEO can bless without having to read 600 pages of safety procedures. And those blue boxes on the right, that's where we live, right? That's where the safety professional's job is every day. We're constantly updating and working and doing assessments and doing audits and managing the software that we're in and doing the day-to-day job. But if you can get all of the things in black locked down, then what it does is it gives you program legitimacy. And so when you gain legitimacy and you've got all of the questions answered, you get to a really good spot in your evolution into a system of getting rid of the question why. And why do we have to do this? Why do I have to wear goggles for this job? Why can't I do this? This doesn't make any sense. You've got, at this point, operational alignment, because from the top down, you've built this policy and you've built this overarching way to say, listen, these are the things that are non-negotiable. These are the things that we are going to do. And the way you've gotten there is to work with your team. You've worked with operations to figure out what it is that makes sense. And of course, this is all in a continuous improvement loop, right? And what you finish with is a common understanding. So one other way to think about this, and an analogy I use a pretty good bit, is to think of this guiding management system document as the enabling legislation. So if in the 70s, when OSHA was passed by Congress, it was very short bill. It did not get into the detail of how high you can climb before you need fall protection, or the ins and outs of lockout tagout, or what it means to create an injury log, or what is actually needed to be recordable. It simply said, we're going to create this process, we're going to create this agency that is now empowered to move forward. And then moving forward, of course, this is what everyone on this call, at least, has kind of built their career around and focused in those blue boxes. But if you don't have empowerment at the basic level from your senior leadership, then you're going to have a very hard time making things into a system. And one thing I tell people a lot, like, if you've already done this once, but it's been a few years and you're now, maybe your program's a little stale and you want to kind of give a shot of adrenaline to your safety program, recreate this document. Make senior management go through the process. They don't have to do much work. You're going to create this document that identifies, when are we going to train? What are we going to do? What are the basic rules and expectations? All of these things. And I've seen it work very effectively, where people with very solid safety programs and safety management systems actually recreate this document, put a fresh coat of paint on it and get the new president, or if it's the same president, a redoubling down on what the basic baseline expectations are, is a super powerful tool that I've seen work a lot. So I just can't understate the importance of this. A lot of people have it buried in their documents, and big companies got hundreds of pages of guidance. Well, that's not going to get read. This is something that you need to design so it can be shared with stakeholders. It can be shared with employees. It can be shared with customers and insurance companies. This is sort of the high level look at your program, not the detail. And it's so easy for us as safety professionals to get lost in the detail. But if you don't have the president saying, this is the way, thou shalt do these things, it makes it very difficult to have a system. So let's say you do this, you get all this done, and then suddenly, you've got a great system. You've arrived. You've got a document. The president believes in it. I'm living in the blue boxes. It's all good. And what I'm here to tell you, the bad news is, no, you've literally just started. Because at the core of what it means to be a safety professional are human beings and dealing with human beings. And so the hard work of being a safety professional is relating to human behavior. But if you have a system, if you have gotten rid of the noise, if you've gotten rid of the whys, you can actually find some more time to show empathy, to develop relationships, to make it personal. You're never going to get away from poor decision making. You're never going to get away from things that you can't systematize out bad decisions. You can't. The rules may say, hey, I will not leave the eye wash looking like this for the morning shift. But that doesn't mean it's still not going to happen. So immediately, you But by having a system that would track this and hold people accountable and develop it, you can begin to move past those human behaviors that, frankly, is where we spend all our time. If you a program can track bad behavior, but a system will seek to understand its root causes. A system will get to the real why behind these behaviors. I love this sign because I can't imagine what led to a company putting this up. But clearly, they've got some bravado. They've got some folks not behaving themselves, and you can't. You're never going to get to a place where you can absolutely systematize out things like overconfidence. But you can track it, you can hold people accountable, and having a system certainly makes it a lot easier to do. When you've got a system, you can start to focus on things like distraction and fatigue and these underlying root causes that can lead to injuries and things. But at the end of the day, if what you're doing is spending your time in administration and what you're doing is spending your time with paperwork and you sit at a desk all day and write JSAs and you're not engaging with operations, you're going to get risky behavior. People aren't going to assume that you understand what they're up against or that your goals are different. If they think your goal is to get out as much piece of paper as possible, and not help them be as efficient as possible, then I'm here to tell you, you're doing it in a way that could use some improvement. There are ways to drive behavior that can be positive, and frankly, most of it starts with data. So we all know KPIs, and we all probably get tracked on these and have to report to the boss on these, and understanding this is one of the golden rules, understanding what that means. How do you measure performance? How do you measure whether a system is operating appropriately? Well, there's in a system, you can run diagnostics. You can find areas that aren't great. In a program, you're probably just using some lagging, maybe a few leading indicators. But as a safety professional, what I like to coach people on is how do you measure and how do you share it and with whom? Are you coming up with something that everyone understands and shows like the different departments an understanding of that what their business goals are? Have you ever made up a target that was related to production? 1 injury per 1,000 valves created, or do you have a way to overlay safety related costs into business? So, these are the kind of what I think to be the 5 main buckets of KPI related to safety. And of course, your leading and lagging that everybody knows about, but there's some operational, some financial, and some cultural. So let's dive into some of these a little bit. So with leading and lagging indicators, which are the kind of the baseline, the ones that every safety professional goes to, they're important. I mean, not only is the lagging indicators of just the injury rates and the year to year, I mean, that's driving costs, your EMR, your TRIR, your DART, all of that is in the rearview mirror, which we know still important. And frankly, the Avetas of the world and the ISNets of the world, they're not going to let us leave those behind. In no way am I suggesting that. We have to track that. But these things don't move the needle with operators. They're important and they can understand an injury rate, but you try and put it in terms that they understand. So leading indicators are the same way. They are absolutely a critical tool. But if you're talking about things like training rates and inspections, operators can get their hands around that. Some of the other ones like recognition and even behavior-based observations that aren't necessarily near misses, but those things are hard to translate into a spreadsheet for the CFO. I mean, he or she may get it. They understand that these are important, but spend some time as a safety professional thinking about how you can drill down on additional metrics. There's financial, there's operational, and there's cultural. This necessarily means partnering with someone in finance or accounting, with operations, which you already should have a partnership with HR. I see companies all the time where they literally fight over who reports what, which there's no alignment there. There's sometimes, you don't see it a lot, but there's sometimes where you see human resources and safety not aligned. So when I talk early on about getting alignment, operational alignment, it's equally important that the shared services have alignment. Everyone's goal should be driving a better, faster, safer workplace. So, I just give you a couple of examples, but like if you talk to them in terms of a percentage of equipment out of service, or if you're in a company where quality could use some support, quality is maybe the richest field to plow, because there's so many things that fall out of poor quality. If you have if you're a chemical company or a manufacturer of something and you have a quality fail, suddenly you've generated a bunch of waste that's going to impact your stormwater, or potentially now you're going to raise costs because you have to dispose of something that would have been a product but is now potentially a hazardous waste. And tracking things with that lens on it, safety people are uniquely qualified to track metrics, because you are at least what in my experience, you've typically got a piece of software that's helping you do that, or you have a process that you follow to track some incidents. And all I'm suggesting is that you open your eyes a little bit, you spread the coverage of what you're trying to measure. Of course, you got to remember, you don't want to claim you can measure something that's not easy to measure, and you want to make sure it has operational impact. But I'm just trying to give you some ideas about things. And some of these HR ones, a true sign of a good culture to me is if you're hiring family members. If you are comfortable as an operator that you want your niece or nephew to work for the company, that to me is a tremendous green flag about a company's culture. Are they doing things in the community? So I mean, I without a back and forth, usually when I'm speaking, I'm engaging with the audience, so I feel like I'm just kind of preaching at you now. But there are so many things that you can measure to bring value and shine to your safety department. And doing that by measuring the right things and reporting the right things, you move further away from a program and further into a system, because you're getting alignment. So the next thing that helps a lot is this action cadence. And again, maybe you're on a call and your company's way past this, but even big companies I see kind of miss the boat on this opportunity to get alignment. So what do I mean by an operational action cadence? Well, what do you actually want operators to do? You're the safety director. Safety is your responsibility. Your job is to support operations and make them safer. What would you have them do? Now, sitting down and writing that down and going through an iterative process with the operators is incredibly valuable, because you can set an accountability routine. So now you've got the president of the company signing a document saying, thou shalt do this. And you've worked with local leadership and the boots on the ground about what it actually means. That makes it a lot easier to drive consistency across sites. So what am I talking about? I'm just going to give you some examples. You can do, like, whether it's safety committee meetings, if those are not sanctioned and routine, they will stop happening. It's just too hard to keep it going unless they're really led by a local strong GM, or an executive. If you're a smaller company, and getting the president to spend 30 minutes a month focused exclusively on safety can have a absolutely transformative effect on your journey from a program to a system. Site and equipment inspections, safety huddles, JSA and JHA development. I know a lot of safety professionals that develop good procedures and solid procedures, but fail to talk to the person who will literally be turning the handle on the equipment. fail to get their buy-in. Having local buy-in, and I'm talking about boots on the ground, the actual operator of the bandsaw, understanding what you're doing and helping to develop this process. And I'm sure most people do that, but when I see that, it's what a missed opportunity for alignment. PPE assessments are the same way, and that commitment is on the operator. They've got to agree that they will do something. You can find the right PPE. You can make sure it's comfortable. You can find the one and show the company that, look, if we don't go cheap here, we can get one that's comfortable and they'll wear it longer, that kind of thing. That's a safety professional's job, but you got to get that commitment from operations. Employee training, I see so many companies miss out on that. 5S housekeeping schedule, incident reporting, metrics, emergency action plan training, actually doing the work. This is all something, sitting down with your operators, if you've already done it, great. But if you haven't, this is a 1 hour exercise that can bring alignment faster than you'd be, and you'd be surprised how fast it can be brought. So implementing, so there's a ton of other things you can do. You can create an audit plan with them. You get just this action cadence is a broad term, but hopefully that makes sense to everybody. So another thing that I see that is crucial to a system, and I rarely see in a program, is where the safety department actually shares their story and develops a narrative, which is so necessary to maintain momentum. But it can create momentum. You can nurture your program by bragging about it. It takes a story to raise awareness. I challenge EHS leaders all the time to do a brag piece. What if imagine your company is about to get bought and they have a safety department? What are you going to do to show this new buyer who's coming in looking for synergies? What are you going to do to brag about your store, about your program? And these things can be internal, they can be external, it can be designed for a community, it can be designed for an employee. But this story, this narrative, further that's integration with operations. So let me just give you a couple of examples. You see branded programs all the time. So like big companies here, I've got Celanese and Balfour Beatty. They have a rallying cry, a flag that gets planted that says, we will do this. I mean, these are leading brands. These are huge companies that take safety very seriously. And I'm not saying that every business needs a branded program, but having a story, having an understanding. So here's two other examples that I worked on in my past. And the Clean Harbor side, that company still has safety at the top. This is still their campaign, and we worked on this to create it. But you create this narrative, this story, this easy thing to fall back on. And then in the middle there is one we did that was focused on the drivers. So we really did, we campaigned and focused some attention on finding out what do they need to do? What do we want our drivers to do? And then we drove a campaign around that. So if you have a narrative, you can have something to rally behind and even market. I mean, create a story for executives to send home. Like a letter from the president to the employee is so powerful and something that never gets done. But if it's a letter focused on safety, sure, it can be wrapped in other things and company goals and that, but just to send it home so that the spouse and the family of that employee can see my company cares about me. This is how you build an integrated system. This is how you build belief. And you could also create one that shows, if you're in a business that's heavily regulated or use service companies that have high demands, if your goal is to try to get into to work for Balfour Beatty, to be a sub, or to go to a Celanese plant, or go to a Exxon plant, you absolutely have to have your safety house in order. And imagine giving your sales team something other to talk about than price or service. Like, you can create a sales slick. I can't tell you how many people, I'm a closet marketer, but I love to help safety professionals unlock their marketing ability. There's nothing stopping you. There's so many tools out there that can help you create a story. To create a brag deck, I challenge a safety director, create a brag deck. Pretend you're about to get bought and you want to impress whoever's coming to do due diligence on you. Create a brag deck. And that narrative then, of course, can go to helping you get your insurance rates down. This is our number one thing we try to help people do. We like to come in and justify our expense, and our software will pay for itself. If you can just get your house in order and then you show it to your insurance company and work with your insurance company to show why you are more insurable. I mean, that puts you in a position where your job is to advocate from within, and then now you're working with people. You're getting more recognition. You're really driving from a program to a system. There's nothing holding most safety professionals back other than they don't think it's their job. But saving money and helping the company run better is your job. So I'm on a decent time track here. One other thing I miss all the time is I see that gets missed all the time is new hire training. And I apologize about these memes. I can't tell if people are rolling their eyes or chuckling under their breath, but missing on new hire training is probably the number one cause of sustained inability to engage with to create a safety management system. If you don't value new hire training and don't create it, you're never going to move from a program to a system. You're never going to break that link, because if you have, and listen, I know a lot of companies that struggle with turnover, and this is a lot easier to kind of make a funny meme about and I understand how difficult it is, but we can't undervalue the new hire training, because at the end of the day, like, the best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago. But if every day you wait, it's never going to be there. And if you do not have your new employees believing that is the single most toxic thing to your culture, if they come in and your company is not clear from the top down that we believe in this, even if you have just a program and not quite yet a system, and maybe you'll never get there, but believing in the system, believing that management has your back, that is super important. So I'm gonna close with one last thing, and kind of a theme to think about. And I love this image because there's so many people here doing one thing, and that is servicing the machine. So our job as safety professionals, yes, we want the workplace to be safe, and yes, we want to eliminate hazards. But at the end of the day, our job is to service the revenue machine. Okay. We are here to support the business operating as fast as it can, but safely. So we set the guardrails, right? We set the guardrails, but the goal is to turn it wide open. We have to support productivity, profitability that drives morale. The hierarchy I see a lot is that safety and quality are at the top. And if you have those two things dialed in, then the revenue will come, the margin will come. But our job is to not stop business, but our job is to run the revenue machine as safely as we can. Now, a couple of things have to happen. You've got to know that management has your back. You've got to use escalation wisely, but you absolutely stop the machine if unsafe behavior is happening. You have to know that you have a way to drive accountability with a system that's already blessed and approved, and you can integrate with operations. You won't be driving that accountability. The GM will, the leader, the department leader will be doing that. But it's a way to actively demonstrate your commitment to understanding what your operational colleagues are up against. So servicing the machine goes deep. I've given a whole seminar on what that actually means, but I just don't want anybody to lose sight of the fact that yes, we have responsibility to stop bad behavior, and yes, that quote unquote safety cop is a stereotype that is earned, but That is very uh, old school way to think. Like the way we want to do it is to set operations up so that they're operating safely. And engage. Another thought I'll add to this. Like you can engage in process improvement beyond EHS and safety. So if your company offers Six Sigma training or any type of lean training or anything like that, I cannot recommend it enough to safety folks. You would not believe how much waste, and I don't mean like hazardous waste. I mean wasted time and process and things that safety gets to see. Why? Because we're all around the revenue machine. We're in shipping. We're in receiving. We're in production. We're everywhere. So we can see things that can help the company. And the more mature and longer time you have in the saddle, the more you get to see these things. But this is absolutely something that a safety professional can help the company. If you see a bottleneck or you see waste, you can flag it, you can highlight it, you can take training to make yourself better about how to manage it. And this concept of servicing the machine is just something that I coach EHS teams on all the time. And I can't overstate it enough how important it is that your company's counting on you to do this. They need you to set the guardrails, but the company is in business to be productive. And so if you are seen as being counterproductive, if you're the wet blanket, it's very difficult to get a safety management system going with against that backdrop. Okay, I'm here at the end. I've got these momentum boosts and this momentum roadmap tool set. So this is what if you're interested, we're giving it to you in bite-sized chunks because it's not for everybody. Maybe you're way past it and you don't need anything. But this is a guidebook to show how we use a tool. If you like it, we'll then send you the tool as well. And then here's my contact information. I invite anyone to please come to our website or check us out or reach out to me if you have any questions or need any help. We have a safety management system platform, but I spend a lot of my time coaching EHS managers and directors on how to make a difference in your program and kind of where you are in your journey and helping you move on to the next step. So with that, Nathan, I think I'll turn it back over to you.
All right, great. That was some fantastic information, Chip. Thank you very much. I do have just a couple questions. A couple of them were about the same, so I'm going to try and reword them. But first, in your opinion, what's the best way to get management buy-in and employee engagement?
So using data to show why it's important is the best way to is basically on the foundation of it. But to get management engaged, for me, I have found that narrative, developing that story, like showing the great things we're doing. There's no president that doesn't want to brag about his company. And when I say get the president to write a letter, I mean literally you write the letter and say, just so you know, we are doubling down on safety. It's very important. And you send that letter out so that two things happen then. One, the president gets to brag. He gets to touch the home of the employee. But then he has a much more difficult time developing what I call corporate amnesia, which I'm sure many of us have dealt with. Because once he's committed in writing and you put it in a digestible chunk, like what you can't do is get management engaged in the minutia. You've got to get it at a high level that allows them to look good. So I hope that answered the question, Nathan.
That does. That actually was really helpful. Another question: if there was one thing to focus on initially, or even iteratively throughout the process, one thing, what is that? What would be the most beneficial, do you think, aside from the document you just described?
Then I would say the operational action cadence. Like it can't be that you're asking them to do something that they don't understand why, or something that they can't do. Why do we have to do do we really have to do an inspection every single shift for the fork truck? You know, and if that's already set and you understand and the boss understands why, and you've shown them the OSHA citation, the operator doesn't care about the OSHA citation, but here's the rules. This is the way it is. And you develop a way to make it super easy for them. You put a barcode on it that hooks to their phone and goes directly to your management, your piece of software, that kind of thing. So I would say that's number one, Nathan, is beyond getting authorized to do it, is making sure that what you want them to do makes sense.
Gotcha. That makes sense. All right. So last question. You mentioned Lean and Six Sigma. Is there any other training that you would highly recommend for safety professionals, people who want to become more familiar with the ins and outs of an entire system and not just the policies, the programs, the inspections, which are an element of it, but the whole thing?
What a great question. You know, my mind immediately goes to the whole mental, the human aspect, the idea that you're going to train on how to develop empathy. And you know, there's a huge movement, the human and operational performance, and God, I wish I could point to one thing directly. What a great question, but I would love to look at that more. But I would focus more on understanding the psychology and the human element of it. And then maybe secondary to that is learning how to leverage new tools. I mean, listen, AI is changing everything and making everything easier for us. But you're never going to get away from that human side. So being able to help your folks, and it is not expensive. And the main thing I'll say too, Nathan, everything that I've mentioned is available to any size company. Like, you don't have to be a huge brand to do a lot of these things. And I think sometimes we default that maybe you do. You know, these are big company practices, but technology's made it easy. So staying on the cutting edge of technology and understanding a way to develop empathy. And then maybe one other thing, now that I'm thinking about it, is learn about you know, the ins and outs of a P&L, of what the operator's like. What does it cost to do a business? If you can't speak finance, at least at a very high level, then you have that creates the opportunity for you to lose the CFO and that audience, which is so important. So there's a few things that just popped in my mind.
That's fantastic. Thank you so much. That's some really, really good information. So I do want to thank everybody for joining us today on this lovely Friday for our webinar. Thank you so much, Chip, for that excellent presentation.